You can't be a lesser evil when you're sponsoring a genocide. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix.
Hold on, folks. No audio.
You can't be a lesser evil when you're. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. You don't get to apply the label lesser evil to a president who is backing a literal genocide. That's not a thing. Past a certain point, you're just plain
Maybe I have to
evil.
be here for the audio.
If you were to make a list of the absolute worst things a powerful leader
Can you hear
can
it? Can I
do,
get a 1 in the chat if you can hear
genocide
it?
and carelessness with
Sure, I
nuclear
can hear it.
leadership should
Great.
be on the very top of that list. Biden has done both of these. You can't legitimately call such a person a lesser evil. Israel supporters are scum. Lower than them are the Biden supporters who avoid thinking too hard about his genocide in Gaza and make excuses for it. Because at least the Israel supporters are honest about what they are. Lower even than the overt Bidenists are the progressives who condemn Israel's actions out of one side of their mouths while still pushing the need to vote for Biden out of the other. Because they're even less honest about themselves than the outright shitlibs. If you're gonna be a genocidal shit stain, at least do it without sowing confusion and muddying the waters. So it turns out the New York Times hired an actual genocide supporter who'd never even been a reporter before to co-author atrocity propaganda about mass rapes on October 7th. If the Western media actually told the truth and reported the news, this revelation would be a major international story today. Being an ally country to the USA is like being friends with a really bitchy drama queen, where you're only allowed to help her tear down her social enemies and can't ever talk about what she's doing to create all the conflict in her life, because if you do, she'll come for you next. Palestinian lives are more important than Western feelings. It doesn't matter if criticizing Biden's actions makes your feelings feel nervous about Trump. It doesn't matter if pro-Palestine activism makes your feelings feel like you've been persecuted. Your feelings don't matter. Western liberal leaders are always trying to get you to trade feelings in exchange for concrete improvements in material conditions. Now, Biden administration officials are proclaiming how disappointed they are in the Netanyahu government for approving thousands of new West Bank settlements, even as they continue their unconditional material support for Israeli butchery of Palestinians. Before that, Western leaders were all babbling about how concerned they are about the impending assault on Rafah, while physically pouring more and more weapons into Israel. Before that, they were telling everyone we should focus on how some Jewish Zionists feel threatened by pro-Palestine demonstrations, instead of focusing on the human butchery that is being experienced by Gazans. You see this over and over again on all issues. You want an end to genocide? They solemnly tell you their hearts are with the people of Gaza who are experiencing unimaginable hardship, but never actually do anything to stop it. You want an end to police brutality? They tell you they hear you, they support you, they stand with you, but never actually change policing policy. You want health care? They tell you to focus on getting emotionally hysterical about Donald Trump instead of helping to improve your material conditions. You want economic justice? They tell you to instead get worked up about culture war issues the powerful don't care about, and focus on how good it feels to be on the correct side of that war. They've set up this counterfeit currency system where you hand them political power and consent for the murderousness, tyranny, and exploitation of the globe spanning empire, and they pay you for it with feelings. Here is unipolar planetary hegemony, we tell them, and here are your feelings, they reply magnanimously. Here is our consent for unfettered capitalism, neoliberal imperialist extraction, wars, militarism, starvation sanctions, and proxy conflicts, we say. And as payment for your product, we present you with some feelings, they tell us with a warm smile. Here is our health, the health of our biosphere, our future, and our sanity, we say. And here is a big fat briefcase full of feelings, they reply. The message we are fed over and over again is that feelings matter more than Palestinian lives. Feelings matter more than your neighbors having a roof over their head and being able to provide for their children. Feelings matter more than freedom from tyranny and abuse. Feelings matter more than the ecosystem we depend on for survival. Feelings matter more than avoiding nuclear Armageddon. And everything keeps getting worse and worse. And somehow all these feelings we're being traded aren't actually making us feel any better. Somehow supporting the correct leaders who say the correct words isn't actually improving anything. We've traded these people the entire world and look down to find ourselves holding a big plastic bag of monopoly money.
So, hi, Michael. So that completely gave away my surprise of you returning.
I'm sorry, but I didn't.
No,
Boo.
it's not your fault. Like, we have technical difficulties. I booed back to my Mac. I had to wear this so I could hear you, and didn't realize that wouldn't allow me to hear the audio of the video. So, what are you gonna do? We're
Okay.
learning and we're working on it. And thank you all who have joined us for learning with us or hanging in there with us while we learn. So just to say hello to some people in the chat. Charlie Brown Politics, what's up? Mastermind Hour. They're from the Beyond the Arc Politics, which airs on Sundays at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. So I always love to see them here. I can't always make their show, but I always watch it afterwards. Jack Hemmings, what's up? And yeah, so you are back. I wanted to show that before we got into this very very personal and deep topic that we're going to discuss tonight, because this I think this shows kind of how they corral us and try to make us feel like our minds are broken. But there's nothing wrong with us. Our minds aren't broken. They're trying to break it.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, look, my glasses are gonna look crooked. I lost my
Speaking
wrong
of
side.
broken, yeah.
My glasses are broken, but my mind is not.
Yes. And this is where I feel like I've gotten into a bit of a trap where it starts to feel like if people start to think like your mind is broken and you start to argue that I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. One of the symptoms of your particular problem is that you believe that there's nothing wrong with you. And then the more that you argue that there's nothing wrong with you, the digger it seems you're deeping a deeper hole you're digging. So but then maybe this is part of the perception. And then some of the people in my life who've been supporting me have been telling me, right, like, you're very smart, you're very, you're nice,
Very.
you're a good person, right? You're doing a lot of things right. Don't really don't doubt yourself, right? In a lot of ways, like they appreciate what I have to say. So, and I have to stop letting my own negative inner voice counteract this anecdotal evidence I'm getting from people in my life, right? So.
Yep, and we'll get into that, like the science of it all, and um, so I'm excited to talk about it. So, did you want to just give them a little
should explain a little bit where I've been the last week or whatever. I apologize a little bit for the confusion I created with the RBN crew here, kind of making people unsure as to whether I'll be here or not for however long. I was having some difficulties with substance use, abuse, depending on your interpretation of how healthy or not healthy your behavior is and stuff. So I was starting to feel like my alcohol use was getting to be a problem, starting to hold me back and create more problems than it solves, right? So then physically not really getting the response that you like, the diminishing returns. You typically used to enjoy it more than you did, but you're still trying to climb up a slippery slope, and you got to figure out, should I keep up with this behavior that seems to be getting worse, or is it time to call a spade and see if you need a bit of a change of heart, right? So I think I did the right thing at the right time. I feel a lot better. I got spent a week in detox there. Met a great group of people while I was there. I'm going to be able to form a support group moving forward. I'm going to be attending some meetings, getting hooked up with counselors, and I actually feel like while it was a possible option for me to continue on to further longer term care, that may still be an option in the future. I think that just based on what's happened in the week since I've been back, I feel like it was, if not the best thing, at least advantageous that I happened to get out when I did. I don't know about people who believe in synchronicity or not, or like destiny, that kind of stuff, right? But maybe it's me reading into it because I want to with a bias or whatever. But I feel like the moment that I got out was like the perfect timing, because I managed to catch some problems with a situation with the child custody that I'm still in the middle of. If I go to a long-term care, I may be gone a little bit, so long that it makes it more difficult to deal with these things in a way that in the very long term would be preferable, at least, right? I would like to have more equitable access to my kids, right? Part of the pressure to go to a rehab facility has a lot to do with when you're in legal situations like this. You want to bend over backwards to show the law uh, how how acceptable you are as a parent or whatever. How like you want to prove to them that you're worthy, right? But then, in a sense, I feel like this can be the law gets to blackmail people who tend to maybe happen to have we all have some sort of weakness, right? So I feel alcoholics and drug users in particular tend to be like the scapegoats of society, for of course, right? So our problems are a disability, but then it's not quite treated as a disability. It's more treated as a lifestyle choice sort of thing. But then when you look into the science of it, it is quite a serious disability. And then so when you come to terms with that, you feel like maybe I'm one of these people that has this type of disability. It's better maybe to be honest about it instead of like, you hide your problems that tend to blow up bigger because you're bottling it up and repressing things. And so you start to follow the advice, you start to accumulate the evidence. Maybe a change is not not a bad thing, right?
So, can you just explain a little bit about, just for people who might not know, the difference between, we kind of talked about this. I have to take one of these out of my ear. Ugh. Oh, that's so much better. Like the voluntary 72-hour hold versus an involuntary, what rehab versus a detox.
Right. So there's all kinds of like little different, like there's many different options actually, which is a good thing in this system. And then there's definite differences with the Canadian and the American system, but obvious similarities. So our system can be more privatized than people realize, and it's getting to be more and more so. But with a 72-hour involuntary hold, that's more like the police will come and grab you if you are considered a danger to yourself or to others, an immediate danger. If it's considered reasonable to determine that someone is behaving this way, So then they can put you in there for 72 hours involuntarily, and then depending on how you respond, basically they'll let you out on good behavior or whatever, and your history and everything. There's a lot to that. So I have a history a long time ago. I've been in the psych ward twice. So the first time was an involuntary stay for 72 hours. And fairly foolish of me, somewhat embarrassing. This is part of the difficulty to admit whether or not I was going through some type of psychosis to have decided to do what I did. I've been struggling with work for years now. I seem to have developed this pattern where I can work for around 2 years for someone for minimum wage, and I can feel, based on my perception and the feedback from my coworkers, that I've done what's necessary to earn a raise and do the above and the beyond kind of thing. But then my character is not respected when I go to ask for this raise, and then I tend to have this rage quit, fire. Can't quite tell if I quit or they fired me, and it's this repeating pattern. So I finally came to an end with it, and I'm like learning all this stuff about capitalism and communism, and I'm like, we can't just keep doing this. You add in the global warming stuff, and it's over, right? So you get into this doomerist, like something has to change. So then I'm like, I cannot go to work, right? I have to stop chasing this dragon, whatever, right? But then you do that, you had a family to support, right? My parents had bought a house for us because they had enough wealth. They had paid off their mortgage. They managed to put down a mortgage on a second one, and then we were paying rent to them. And I was a foolish kind of, maybe this is the kind of thing that only someone who comes from a more upper middle class kind of privileged kind of lifestyle or childhood would be able to do this kind of thing, where I had really threatened my own personal relationships with my own family by trying to, like, are you with me or against me, right? So I made everything difficult by just becoming an obstacle. And then they decided, because I'm sitting at home, not going to work, drinking booze, smoking weed or whatever, and getting more and more pissed at every little thing or whatever, that I just seemed to be irrational, right? So they called the cops on me. I assaulted them in self-defense or whatever, if you want to term that. And then I refused to go to court. All this is a big long story, right? So I get involuntary into the psych ward there, and then because I assaulted the cops on the way to the psych ward, I then had to attend court over that, which over the next year I just refused to any of the summons until they put me in jail for 3 weeks. And then I had been, after being in jail for 3 weeks or whatever, they kind of coerce you through the psychological torture of being in there or whatever to kind of to just like plead guilty or whatever to get out, kind of thing. So I got on probation or whatever. That was a long time ago. And then eventually, after I was back with my ex and stuff or whatever, I had gone through another period where I was feeling really distressed, and I felt maybe I should voluntarily go in this time. And I had still not a very good experience. Better than the last time, but if you have something to say.
Yeah, I want to unpack this for a minute, because I'm sure I don't have my little bun
I
today.
said a lot
So
there. So before I continue,
I want to unpack this. These are the parts I want to unpack. Okay, the anger and frustration where you have come to a realization of the system. It could be anything. That happened to me when I was younger, when I came to a realization of the religion um, I was raised in, and I actually at 16 made a valiant effort. I'm like, okay, I'm getting older. This is what I'm doing. This is what I was taught. I need to like really understand it. So I started at the beginning of the Bible and I started reading. By the time I got to Exodus, I was like, what the? So I'm reading, in my mind, I'm thinking, why do we only listen to parables in church? Like maybe three lines or what have you. And then we make a whole sermon off of just that. That makes no sense to me. If we're really serious about this book, we need to read it, correct? So I took it upon myself to read it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what's going on? I like history. What's going on in those times to make them say these things as well? So I I'm not a religious person, obviously, from that experience, but I was getting angry because people couldn't understand what I saw. And it sounds like that's that's what has happened to you when you were learning about your political views, learning more about them, and really grounding yourself in a view that is more with your values. So I just wanted to get your perspective on that because I had to learn for myself to leave people alone and let them be, or speak my piece, smile about it, not get angry, and agree to disagree. So I'm wondering on that spectrum of you have to listen to me. If you just listen to me, you would have a better understanding of how the world works and what's going on to I just don't give a shit at all. Like, where are you in between those? Because somewhere in the middle is I can explain, why I feel this way, and I could leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then I could go home and be okay with it.
Well, I feel like I've tried to explain things in as many ways as possible, right? You feel maybe it's a failure on my end to communicate, right? Is it as a failure to explain, or is it a failure to understand? So, but then after a while, like the more that you try and rework your wording to get your understanding across, you start to have to rework your understanding to get whatever your point across, and then after a while, you're like the whole agree to disagree thing. That can work in the smaller things in some ways, whatever. But we can't agree to disagree on like genocide sort of stuff. Like there are limits to these things. So then part of this beyond the political stuff, you go researching into like logical fallacies and stuff, and that's another. It's you get this new way of looking at the world, right? And then you start to see how people like the little things that people are doing that contribute to the problem, that they're like, okay, if we don't make this mistake, then we won't make that mistake. But then they're like, oh, but that doesn't really seem like a big deal or whatever. It's like, just live and let live, right? And it's like, but that's technically a fallacy or whatever you try to explain, right? But then it's as long as they don't want to take your word for it or whatever and take on your worldview as you explain it to them, like it's like a spiritual awakening thing, right? Where all of a sudden you see everything different, wherever, but then you kind of look like a lunatic to those people who haven't had that conversion experience. So it's, I don't know, like,
Correct. You look like a lunatic to people who haven't,
but to you, you've
because,
had a eureka, you've had a revelation, right? It's like,
right. Look, I've had Black people tell me that they are glad slavery happened because if it never happened, they would have never known the power of Jesus Christ. You think I'm going to argue with them?
you can't, yeah, that's like,
I'm
you want
not.
to hit
I'm
your head
not.
against the wall, right?
I'm not wasting my time with that. Okay. Uh,
But this is even
Glory
similar
unto God to you.
to a Christian argument that there are those who can be saved and those who cannot be saved. So it's like maybe it'd take a lot of work to get through to some people, but I feel like people just kind of hold on to a lot of these things because it's like what it's their tribe or whatever. Like Steven like was saying the other day, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
so much that they don't know what's wrong with it scientifically or whatever. It's that they're entitled to their cultural fixation, right? And
Yeah.
then
And I want to commend you for coming on this podcast, which is going to be out for everyone to see across, you know, countries,
yeah,
with your own
anyone, as long as it
personal.
doesn't get taken down, whoever wants
Yeah.
comes across it, right? Who knows?
But I mean, it's brave to tell your story. So I just wanted to take the time to commend you for that, and I'm going to try to say a little bit of my story too, just so
Not going out on the limb alone, whatever.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with that being said, when my mom retired, she went to Israel. Now to her, this is the most amazing life experience trip. You know, something that like on her bucket list that she will take away with her and live in peace when she passes away type of experience. To her. To me, I was mortified because I lived in New York City for like 20 years. So I am closer to an understanding of Israel than she will ever be. Okay, now fast forward. Genocide. My mom doesn't, she won't even watch the news. I'll I'll try, like I'm in the front cooking and I'll be watching RBN and what have you. She'll come up there and play with her puzzles and she's listening and it annoys her, so she gets up and she goes into her room. Because my mom wants to watch. She watches Christmas movies all year round. That's how sweet and adorable she is. Like, and I have to realize if she wants to spend her last days watching Christmas movies in this fantasy uh, utopia world, what am I supposed to do about that? I mean, she is still my mom, and I love her,
Yeah.
and she loves me, and she's not a bad person. She's just not political, and she's not. I know John H. Yeah. So, am I supposed to get crazy radical and listen to me, mom, or let her be?
Yeah.
Just fix her plate, send her on her way, let her watch her Christmas movies,
Yeah.
and so she could smile and go to sleep and do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, those aren't the people we're trying to reach.
No.
So I say leave them alone
Yeah.
and let's focus on people who actually have a curiosity that we may, or even if we don't change their mind, we at least get the wheels spinning in their brain, right?
Yeah.
And also, I listen to them too. I let my wheels spin from the things that they say.
Yeah.
So that's my
Well,
2 cents about
th-
that.
that's very
Everybody's
important,
laughing at my
right?
mother, by the way.
Yeah. It's all right.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's all right. We all got our quirks, right? You know, our cute little strangeness. But um, what was I trying to say? I would say, yeah, with the older people, a little bit towards the end of life is perfectly reasonable, right? And then, but this gets me thinking about the problem of when you date someone, is it a is it a deal breaker if they're not of the same political alignment as you are, sort of thing, right? So when I first got involved with my ex, I wasn't. It was like a decade ago by now. Like I don't even not keeping count. Anyway, my point is, I was not into politics like I was. I was socialist minded or whatever. I was interested in it, but I wasn't like active in it in any sense. And then she was never been she's like politically clueless is what we probably the best way. Maybe not now after what I put her through, but when we when we met or whatever, it was nothing she would have ever given two shits about had I not made it something to be constantly going on and on about like whatever, right? So and that's like, is it okay to leave people to be politically uninterested? And this is where I guess whatever, it's like if you want to leave someone to have their head in the sands in a sense, if their choice or whatever, it's like you can do what you can to a point wherever where you can try and get them to be on side, but after a while it's sort of like harassment and stuff, and you got to really, you know.
Well, can I speak on that?
Yeah.
This is another personal story for me. Um, but before I speak on it, I wanted the people in the chat to answer that question. So pose it again for Michael, please, because we're gonna
Is
go
it a
through
deal
them.
breaker? Is it a deal breaker if the person that you're dating is not of the same political alignment as you are?
Okay. So with that being said, I just want to say a little bit about my background. So I grew up Baptist, um, but my father was Catholic, and but my father let he left all of the child rearing things to my mother. So we grew up Baptist because she and her family were Baptist. Okay. Well, my mother's family was Democrat. My father was a black Republican, and not just any black Republican, a black Republican whose uh, family would host events for the governor, the mayor, the senator, the representative at their house. So my father was huge into politics. Like he watched Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones, Fox News all day. He didn't watch movies and stuff like that. My mom was a more chill. She's more like, well, I know I'm supposed to vote Democrat because that's what, civil rights and all that stuff. And she was more focused on us as children, and she didn't really have time for politics, but she knew Democrat was the way to go for her. They were married for 49 years until my father passed away. So, but
And
my
they're
dad would my dad would rage about politics.
right. But they're also both invested in the illusion of the duopoly, and as long as that's not
Yes.
going away, they can happily live a long marriage with neither side having to disappear, or whatever. When both, in our opinion, are the problem, or whatever. So it's like as long as they don't have to advance their understanding and come to some kind of synthesis or like evolve, like it's this that
Well,
I call
well,
it
and
Manichaeism, this good versus evil, whatever. Our party is the good, yours is the bad, whatever. There's no moving past that for some people for some reason. Like,
also for us, my parents did not discuss politics. My my father used us as like his emotional support person to discuss politics. So I'm sitting there listening to my father rant about politics from the age of 11 until maybe even earlier than that. I don't know.
yeah,
Um, and my father went to a Catholic boarding school, so that just gives you an idea of
yeah.
his psyche.
So my parents are more they're Protestants, right? So my mother's side, her family is Lutheran, and then my dad's Anglican, whatever. So I guess I don't
Ah,
know
I
if
see.
Anglicans are still Protestants or. Well, the problem with the religions getting all these schisms and splits in them is that this gets to be watered down, whatever, and then who's got the real word of God kind of thing, and this is I find it's
Who?
easy to compare religion and politics, and then this is a problem for us often. We are accusing the capitalists of having a religion in their economics, and they accuse us of the same thing. And to try and explain to people that communism is not a religion, never was, never will be, it's a waste of time because they are made up their mind that it is. Like we're a cult or whatever. Right? Everything's a cult.
And Jewish is not a race, but
Yeah.
there we go.
So
So,
they're
so I'm going to start reading some of these comments of the question. And before I do, I just wanted to say, Abby Do is what my father would affectionately call me. So that's why that's my podcast name for politics, because he's the one who drilled politics into my brain.
which is kind
So
of
John H says, it is difficult for me to understand that some people want to be modern slaves. They don't want the change. I can't handle it. Do we just let them watch Christmas movies until it's over? Oh, he's talking about my mother. Yes,
in some cases.
I'm gonna let my 72-year-old mother, who is suffering from early cognitive decline, watch Christmas movies until it's over. I absolutely am. Now, would I do that to someone who is mentally completely capable and and could make changes? No, I'm going to challenge them. But her, I'm going to let her be. And I don't know. Dr. Nick Riviera, not a deal breaker. if we don't align, but let me find out, she a fucking Zionist. That's the deal. That's the red line.
Everyone's got red
That's the red
lines.
line for
Yeah.
Dr. Nick Riviera. Okay. Desert Mantis says, hopefully most people will spin new things by listening to others. Yes. I mean, that's why we're here. That's the purpose. Every day you're supposed to learn new things.
Yeah.
When you stop learning new things, then that's when you start going into mild cognitive decline.
Yeah.
So
And then
take with that.
with a person that you're involved with when you don't have kids, that's the other thing, right? It's easier to pick up and leave, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
once you've already had kids and then things change, then it becomes like your kids turn into a bit of a battleground. So I feel it's very
Mm-hmm.
important for us to teach the next generation, like from the beginning, like what kind of things are not acceptable. And then part of that has to do with the lies of capitalism. But then a lot of people are saying the kids are too young to hear about all this big
No, they're
bad
not.
stuff. And in a lot of ways, they're not. But you don't. It depends on how like
It's
you approach things. So you don't have to be telling them the most gruesome, terrible horror stories every night. That's not going to be good. That's not what I was trying to do, right? I was
it
just
depends
maybe,
on how you feed it to them.
and we happen to be going through one of the worst particular periods in history, in case anyone hasn't noticed. So I may have gotten a little bit off the handle, because we just may have been going through some serious bank crises and some serious climate change that's not being dealt with, or whatever. And then the people who are going to deal with that or whatever are going to be people like me who wanted to transition to like a sustainable farming thing. And if you don't want to get that going, how are we going to feed people or whatever? Part of when you're people who say, okay, we've got the solutions, let's put them into action. If you don't want to help them do that or whatever, like, how am I supposed to maintain the motivation to be a good person when everyone's like, we really can't do anything that you're proposing because
Yeah.
I don't actually have a good reason why, but we just can't. It's like,
Yeah. So I'm gonna so John H. So this isn't about my mother. This is an answer to the question. John H. says that depends. I can probably handle political diversity in a partner as long as they are open to critical thinking. Yeah, um, I agree with that because we talk about this often, right, Michael? That I don't have to agree with you on everything, but like some kind of base level agreement,
right.
I would need that, and then we could play with the where the lines cross and things like that. Um, Let me see who else. Desert Man. Okay, Desert Mantis says I think it would be a deal breaker for me, Michael, for a romantic interest.
Basically,
Des,
yeah, it's the sort of
is
thing that causes people to fall out of love with each other at the very least, right? And then you've got a problem. So,
is Desert Mantis a demisexual? Possibly.
so the other thing I should mention, I also probably had too much of an anti-capitalist philosophy or whatever that I've recognized. When you come across like the real Marxists who actually know what they're talking about, you can realize how much you put your foot in it, right? So what my approach was very much like money is the problem. Money is just an illusion. We can't just keep telling people to have faith in something that's a mirage, can we? But then you really study the problem, you recognize we can't just get rid of money because we know it's a problem, whatever. We have to learn how to use it, even though it's a tool that is toxic, whatever. We have to figure out how to come off this dirty drug, whatever, right? So
Dirty drug. Yeah,
yeah, but
that's an
then
addiction too, as well,
that's what I'm
right?
talking about. But then people can't admit that it's a process. It's a difference. There's a substance addiction and a process addiction. And the gambling addiction is sort of the prime example of a process addiction. Pornography addiction is another one. You don't actually have to ingest any substance to get your fix, right?
Mm.
And these can
Endorphamine
be
addiction.
considered to be less harmful because you're not hurting your body, right? But if you can see the way that the stock market functions, I feel like you can do far more damage with certain process addictions or whatever. At least I'm only harming myself is the way I kind of justify some things to myself,
Mm.
right?
Well, you want to queue up one of your articles because I only have two more to read. Rondo, what's up, Rondo? He said he'll be right back too. So Zionism is a non-starter. Yeah, I tend to agree with like there's a few Zionism is a non-starter here. I can't deal with that.
But how many of us was Zionism on our radar a decade ago? A lot of us are now, we know, but like I wasn't. I was always thinking what was going on there was bad, but until things got this bad, I didn't realize how little I knew. So
Right, right. I think more of us are coming to the understanding of the difference between anti-Semitism and Zionism, because the propaganda machine would always say everything was anti-Semitism, and they're gaslighting you like, wait, what? Because I know I'm telling the truth.
and
Since when is the truth wrong?
before that, the gaslighting was everything is terrorism. So then when I heard about things like Hamas and Hezbollah, when I didn't know anything, I just kind of didn't realize I was taking them at their word for it, that they actually were terrorists, right? And
Correct.
it's like we got to admit how naive we can be in order to not be that way anymore. So
for example, they are trying to say that barbecue in Haiti. Now, he got the name barbecue as a child because his family loved to barbecue. They have taken that, and it was actually a Zionist who is related to, what's that lady, the Epstein's girlfriend's name?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Her. So he wrote an article calling him a cannibal, and it like kind of blew up from there. And because he has the name barbecue, and because voodoo is prevalent in Haiti, and people try to vilify voodoo. Now, I'm from Louisiana. I'm in Louisiana right now, and we love our Haitian brothers and sisters. We owe a great deal of respect and honor to them, because Louisiana would not exist had it not been for the Haitian Revolution. So I just wanted to say that. And you guys smash that like button, please. And I have one more. Are you getting ready, Michael, for what you're going to share? Because I have one more from our friend that I just feel like is completely hilarious. I'm deleting my J Date app. Is J for Jesus? My Jesus Day app. What is J Date? I don't know what it is. I'm just going to go with Jesus. I'm going to delete my Christian Mingle. How about that?
So so can you see my screen there? Working good?
Yeah.
I just wanted to, well, I should start with this maybe. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, cool. Sorry. I just thought something wasn't working there. I got to fix it now. I just closed it. So, okay. So I wanted to start with just this, the word origin of addiction. It seems a little bit silly, but I found when I looked it up, I found it very interesting. I like to do this part-time philology as a hobby, wherever you just you research what a word was originally and how it's changed over time. But I don't really find this original definition to be particularly reassuring. So it says the word addiction traces back to the ancient Roman Empire, specifically Roman law, where it was classified as the formal delivery of a person or property to an individual, typically in accordance with a judicial decision. The word was derived from the Latin word dictio, meaning an awarding, a delivering up. But I find it's better to look a little bit more closely to the word here, where you can get right into the actual, you could split it right down to the core components. So it says in 1530s, implied and addicted to devote or give up oneself to a habit or occupation. From Latin addictus, past participle of addicere, to deliver, award, yield, make over, sell, properly give one's scent to, but figuratively to devote, consecrate, sacrifice, sell out, betray, abandon. This is from ad to dicere, which was usually to say, declare, also pronounced solemnly, blah, blah, blah. Also could be a judge a lot, right? So this I find might be a little bit thing I like to be nitpicky over, but the way that the process of recovery is somewhat focused on getting you to admit your problem. You kind of surrender your autonomy. Uh, while that is for people with problems over control, behavioral control, that's likely a very psychologically necessary and healthy thing to do. But I hope everyone can be aware to take note of how easily manipulated this process can be to convince people to sell out and abandon their true selves in this idea that they are this slave mentality, that they are that they've devoted themselves to this evil kind of substance or whatever, and then we're taught how to shame ourselves, and then into this cycle of, you know, giving up our freedom to some group that will be our savior, right? So it's all very complicated. But then I wanted to also pay attention. You see this large rise in its usage, whatever. These are also interesting little things to take note of, because why did they why weren't they speaking of it so much? Is this maybe just has to do with population, or is this to do with our modern understanding is very fixated on a certain kind of terminology to discuss this problem? Maybe the word addicted itself isn't really as helpful as we think it is, because when we go on further, we'll see that the way that it's used is kind of it's used in such an unscientific way as to become meaningless, like a lot of words are. We can see like the way people use the word fascist, whatever. Everyone I don't like is a Nazi. Now all of a sudden the word Nazi has no meaning. So this can happen with addiction too. So I guess moving on, I wanted to say,
Well, can I
yeah,
mention
sorry, yeah,
something
it was
about
just
that?
sorry, yeah,
Okay. And I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead. Go ahead. It'll come back to me.
right. So I'm just trying to recognize how it's interesting how you have to admit and surrender to saying I'm a person who needs help. I can't do this alone, right? And then you got to go to work and you got to tell them this kind of stuff, and then they're supposed to treat you differently, and then you run into this problem of the politics of the other, right? Because now that you've asked them to treat you differently, they can't very well still treat you like you're the same anymore. So it's like a bit of a paradox, right? So this is just I wanted to quickly run through a guide for employers and employees for dealing with accommodating and so in order to avoid ableism at work, maybe we should all just have a little bit of a gander at this information here. So the purpose of this guide is to help federally regulated employers address substance dependence in the workplace in a way that is in harmony with human rights legislation. I feel this is really not happening much at all. This guide outlines the rights and responsibilities of the employee, job applicants, the employer, unions, and/or employee representatives. So it's not just about you and your boss having to agree to this. This is like we all gotta do a team effort of letting drug users and alcoholics be a part of the team, basically, right? The Canadian Human Rights Act defines dependence on drugs or alcohol as a disability. This means that when an employee is diagnosed with substance dependence, they have a right to be accommodated by their employer, just as anyone else with a disability. As with all other disabilities, the employee, the employer, and union and or employee representatives must all cooperate to find reasonable accommodation for the employee. So I feel that everything hinges on this one single word: is who gets to be reasonable, and how do you define that, and when does it reasonable become unreasonable? So this guide helps employers respond to possible substance dependence in the workplace, whether it is through disclosure by the employee, observation of signs of substance dependence, or a positive drug or alcohol test. Guide takes employers through the process of accommodating an employee It is important for employers to remember that fear of stigma and discrimination often prevents people with substance dependence from addressing the problem and seeking treatment. So,
Well, that's more that.
go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, a capitalist society kind of creates those kind of problems, and then you have to go into hiding because it's a capitalist society, and you're in fear of losing your job and your position,
Right.
right?
And then the more
It's a,
able-bodied and minded you are, the more likely you are to get a job. So we're all incentivized to lie very much. And it's all about who this kind of almost, you would say, evolutionarily selects for people who are better at lying kind of thing. So,
and,
but yeah,
and
you
it,
see how it basically makes it you can't even apply the rules that are meant to protect people's rights. Because when you do, everything just goes to shit, right?
yeah, and this makes me think of what Jimmy Dore said about adult children of alcoholics. Like America is full of adult children of alcoholics. I I really enjoy those segments because I actually read that book about. I'm 46. Am I 46? I'll be 47 next month.
Mhm.
So that would mean about 20 years ago, um, more like 18 years ago or so. And it's a really good book, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And my biggest takeaway, I mean, I read it almost 20 years ago, so I don't remember everything. But the thing I took away from it the most that I remember and I will never forget is because it resonated with me in my life. Um, so my father was an alcoholic, and but he wasn't like physically abusive or anything. He was like emotionally and mentally a lot, but not physically abusive, and a great provider and everything like that. But that was one of his flaws. Um, so when I moved out of his home and moved into my own space, a nice quiet space where I'm chill, I'm doing my own thing, I started having panic attacks a lot. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I thought it was because I started college, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense because I was a great student in high school, like, you know, honors, and this college thing isn't even hard. So what is the problem? I read that book, and it says in the book that when you leave an environment that feels somewhat chaotic, and you have and you're within like a peaceful environment, it agitates you internally because you're not used to that. So you create for yourself a chaotic environment by hook or crook. So that's why I was having anxiety and panic attacks because I needed things to be tumultuous and chaotic so I could feel safe in my, I don't know if it was my brain or my body, but that was my biggest takeaway from that book. And I truly feel like all this trauma that we are experiencing in this country over the centuries is why we behave in these ways still to this day. Everybody's just it's just too much.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's acting like, you
And
know,
I
their
can relate.
mind is broken.
Yeah,
And
I
this
relate to that very much. Like
yeah.
the thing about like maybe I didn't like when I was growing up. I didn't grow up in such a chaotic place, or whatever, as far as I can remember. But then I feel like I fell into a more of a chaotic place after I'd moved out from my parents, and then after being in that situation for long enough period, it does become the norm, and so that's I feel like what's been happening a lot with my interpersonal relationships, where I can be very explosive or quixotic, whatever kind of fancy word you like, but then it's to me it's proportional response to the problem, and to everyone else they're like, you're just ruining my night, man. Like,
Yeah. Well, can we talk a little bit about the scientific theory, because I love that part about um, the hypothalamus
Mm-hmm.
and how it generates enzymes for the body.
Yeah.
Um, I did a lot of work with autistic children, like a like 2 decades ago, or what have you, and so I learned a lot about that at that time, and trying to get them to speak differently to themselves in their own head, so their body would be um, addicted to more enzymes that made them feel better.
Right.
But I digress. You start, and then we'll talk.
No, that's a good thing to mention. I can queue up. I had a thing about it's called the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenocortical axis. And while you're completely right with the whole the enzymes, the negative thoughts have a different type of enzyme and the positive ones. The thing is that when they put us through the detox stuff, they get you off the bad substance, right? And then you often still have these negative thoughts still kind of producing these other enzymes. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the microbiota, where the germs in your body have kind of shifted and adapted to being in this more alcoholic environment or whatever. So your ability to manufacture those positive enzymes is kind of compromised without repopulating your gut, right? And then so you're fighting on a couple fronts, right? You already got this negative mindset you built up over years, which is just feels natural to you. So you're just going to kind of continue to think in your own habitual way, and then you've lost the healthy terrain that makes you just naturally feel better, so that you don't wake up feeling crabby and then stay feeling crabby, right? And then you keep drinking a substance or whatever, or smoking or whatever, that keeps making both of those problems worse. And then, but you cut off the one thing, and then it's like creates all these. Your body tries to shift and everything, and then I think the doctors don't necessarily they don't they'll they'll forget to kind of give you some things that, like, they'll give you pills for the pain or whatever, or to cope, but then they won't give you, like, they give you vitamins now, but then like the hospital food's not really like there's you can always keep having something
Processed food, of course.
yeah, so it's like
Processed
there's
food.
anything you can do to make it give people a better chance, we should be doing it. But a lot of times it's the profit motive allows them to get out of doing the right thing, right? So here let's move to this article now. So this is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical axis in addiction. This special issue of the International Journal of Psychophysiology presents recent psychophysiological work on the hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical axis and addiction to alcohol and nicotine. The past 15 years have seen increasing recognition that HPA function is dysregulated in persons who have developed a dependence on alcohol, nicotine, and illicit drugs. Why should this be so? Addictions, by their nature, are a derangement of adaptive behavior. The HPA has an essential role in normal physiological processes and an adaptation to stress. By extension, altered HPA function in relation to addictions provides us with a window into associated derangements of motivational systems in the brain. In this special issue, workers in the fields of alcohol and nicotine addiction present studies that illustrate how HPA function is altered in relation to these conditions. The term addiction describes a progressive loss of behavioral control leading to dependence on a drug and inability to stop without adverse consequences. All abused substances, including tobacco, alcohol, and illicit drugs, tend to foster increasing use, threatening to cause dependence and the penalty of withdrawal in the abuser. This suggests that, however they differ, all abused drugs have common properties that both depend on and contribute to altered functioning of the central nervous system. It is therefore important to ask whether persons at high risk for future addiction may also share common vulnerabilities, those brain systems that respond to these drugs. I think there's supposed to be to those brain systems. George Koob and colleagues have shown that the brain's reward mechanisms are altered in rat strains that are prone to self-administration of alcohol and other drugs. In addition, these alterations are worsened by prolonged self-administration. In Kube's words, the emotional and motivational apparatus of the brain has been hijacked in persons that have become drug dependent. Other evidence supports a pervasive set of interactions between altered HPA function and drug exposure, addiction, and stress responsivity. The papers in this special issue focus on alcohol and nicotine addictions and how both disorders involve some disruption of the HPA axis. So I found a way to maybe describe this. What is it called? A derangement of adaptive behavior. Maybe an effective way to describe it is like a runaway neuroplasticity, where your brain is continuously trying to change to that proper balance, but because it's a maladaptive and excessive change from an excessively potent substance, your brain can't really quite find a proper balance, and then the constant shifting leads to this derangement. So that's just my own little 2 cents on that. I could read on, but I think
couldn't get past the word derangement because, everybody always talks about Trump derangement syndrome. So I couldn't get past that in my brain.
But then when they say, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? You see how that advice is really not going to work when there's something that's been, it's like the train's knocked off the track a little bit.
Yeah, like 400 centuries of oppression.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 centuries. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was, but this also is I got other articles. This one was talking about reward circuits get like hijacked or whatever. So I think it would be good to go to the next article, which is here.
So while you're doing that, so I know you're saying it says we have 140 viewers. Most of those people are on Twitter. Hey, Twitter. I thought we could see their comments, but we don't see any comments from Twitter. Wow. But hey, comrades, we welcome you, whoever you are. Thank you for tuning in.
Appreciate all the solidarity.
That's correct.
Like and share and do your thing.
Do your thing.
So let's see, what have I got here? This is reward processing and drug addiction. Does sex matter? So this is a bit changing gears, but I think it's important.
Yes.
It's important to acknowledge that maybe men and women will differ in their response to substances. It's sometimes we get caught up in stereotypes without really remembering that there are acceptable, scientifically proven differences that are okay to take note of without turning it into a stereotype. But this is always wading into controversial territory with the modern gender debates and whatnot. So let's take a look at the beginning of this article too. So reward processing is crucial to our health and well-being, and dysfunctional brain reward signaling is a component of a number of psychiatric disorders, including major depression and drug addiction. Rewarding behaviors like eating, parenting, nursing, social play, and sexual activity are powerfully preserved in evolution and are essential for survival. All of them gratifying, they represent enjoyable experiences with high reward values and activate the same brain circuits that mediate the positive reinforcing effects of drugs of abuse. In line with preclinical findings and clinical observations, recent imaging studies confirm that natural, sex, food, and non-natural drugs of abuse rewards differently activate male and female brains. So that non-natural rewards differently activate male and female brains, and also that men and women differ in the ability to resist reward-related impulses. So this is the kind of statement that that's them's fighting words. You know what I mean? The study of sexual morphological differences in human brain has provided evidence of critical effects of gender on brain architecture and morphometry, male-female differences in human brain anatomy have stimulated research on the difference in onset, prevalence, and symptomatology of many neuropsychiatric illnesses between women and men, including drug addiction. Following the official recognition by international institutions and funding research agencies on the importance of taking into account potential differences between men and women in all of the relevant aspects of health-related research, gender is receiving increasing attention by medical and scientific communities. Consequence, evaluation of sex and gender, biological characteristics, and socio-political cultural influences associated with terms male and female, respectively. Differences in reward processing in general and in drug addiction in particular is increasingly being studied. Numerous human behaviors are driven by evolved instincts and urges. We have evolved the capacity to experience considerable pleasure and happiness from several behaviors, among which are eating, drinking, mating, creating protective shelter, and reproducing, all activating an anatomical and neurochemically defined brain circuit, commonly referred to as the pleasure circuit or brain reward system. In both animals and humans, males and females display diverse attitudes and expectancies, process information differently, perceive experience and emotions in different ways, and are behaviorally determined by different needs and drives. Reward processing may also differ between male and female population, with sexual hormones playing an important, although not exclusive, role. When looking at the most common behavioral features known to favor the development of drug dependence, such as poor impulse control, risk-taking behavior, a heightened reactivity to stress, and psychiatric comorbidity, all reveal important differences between men and women. Here, I will illustrate the most recent evidence of showing sex-gender differences in these and other behavioral traits linked to reward processing and enhancing the vulnerability to drug addiction. I will not be, if you want to continue on, by all means, I think that's just a good introduction to the topic here.
Can I just say something? Because I found that profoundly interesting, because it just made me think about, I don't feel like we are doing the trans community enough justice in the medical industry. And when you brought that up, this is the first time I thought about addiction amongst trans people and how their biological makeup can affect their addiction.
This is very interesting.
We're not even ready for that.
I'm not trying to wade all the way into that, right? I'm saying,
yeah, no, I know. I just wanted to say that thought
2015.
because I'm like, wow, I didn't even think of that, but
Yeah.
that's super important. So I just want to go to the comments for a second.
Yeah.
Because that was heavy. I made it heavy.
I was saying
it was already heavy, but I made it even heavier.
But this article is from 2015, so things have changed fairly. There's been since like 2013 or 14, there was a definition change about the transgender. I'm trying to remember. I didn't plan on going this direction, but they did make a definitional change that allowed them to, it's created like a bit of a catch-22 situation that allows them to get the transition to be treated as if they don't have the gender dysphoria, so that because that treating them as if they had a mental illness was not helping them, right? So we needed to understand that this behavior is normal for this subset of the population, but then by creating that distinction in a legal sense, there's still a really big problem there where the only way for them to qualify for the surgery is to get this distinction medically determined, and then you get back into this confusion about gender dysphoria. Is it a problem, or is it healthy, or is it not healthy? And then I don't. That would have to be a topic that we choose to do together and delve into, because that is a lot. And but part of this,
and then it's when you put money into medical care too, that taints the care that you receive as well. So
if you look at the year that this definition change happened, that's where this skyrocketing of people identifying more and more as LGBTQ started to happen, and then it's hard to determine if it's because it's less stigmatized, or it has a lot to do with the change of definition in the medical literature. It's a bit of both for sure. And then, yeah, I don't know.
Yep. So,
But beyond that, it's also important to notice that there are still differences beyond setting this transgender issue aside. There are men who have drug addiction problems. There are women who have drug addiction problems, and there are just physiological differences between us. Very obviously, there are some parts that I have that you don't, and that's like going to be changing the way that things in our bodies affect us, right? Like there's more testosterone, there's less testosterone. Like you don't need to belabor the point, right? But
exactly.
Yeah.
So, hi, Bryce. Bryce Smith says, "Happy Deuce, what's up? I thought you were someone else the other day. Oh, it's the bun. I got rid of the bun. I actually combed my hair out."
I'm keeping my toque on because my hair I've not been able to
Yeah,
afford
you
a
got a
haircut.
cut.
I will get it one as soon as I can here, but
I felt like it was longer before. Like
it is still very long or whatever. It's just starting to like just look better, I guess, whatever. But
well, Bryce says, "What's up, Michael?"
Can't afford nothing right now, so it's partly why I had to quit drinking. I couldn't afford any of that.
Yeah, and I did want to. I'm just going to go back to this real quick, because I feel like this needs to be said. Mastermind. This is about the anti-Semitic versus Zionism. And Mastermind Hour says Zionism is anti-Semitic, and I said, Mastermind, that's absolutely correct because they're putting Jews in danger, and Rondo is, agreeing. So I just wanted to put that out there because we had moved on to another segment, and I don't want to leave any of our comrades behind if I can help it. You know what I mean?
Right. So I had another article that touches a bit on the endocrine disruptors, pollution in the environment. We kind of just talked about that. That's like another part of that has to be discussed along with that trans issue, is that some of these, like when you drink the alcohol and smoke the cannabis and the cigarettes, if you look it up, if whether or not it's an endocrine disruptor, you learn that that technically is considered an endocrine disruptor, which is it affects the hormones in the body, which is what I was talking about with the HPA axis, right? So it's part of the problem is like plastics and other chemicals in the environment. All of these are affecting. So there's a massive cocktail of these chemicals changing all our hormones and stuff. And then, so if we're going to be respectfully administering treatment for trans issues, I'm sure the doctors are all on top of this, and I don't need to be bothering them about it or whatever. I'm sure they're well aware that they need to be as cautious as possible with it. If the hormones are already being manipulated by these or whatever, then need to not overdo it, right? So this is scientists and doctors raise global alarm over hormone disrupting chemicals. So endocrine disrupting chemicals which harm the human body's regulation of hormones have become ubiquitous in consumer products, food, water, and soil, says a new report, leading to serious global health impacts. There are some 350,000 synthetic chemicals and polymers used worldwide, and thousands may be endocrine disruptors. Most were not studied for their human health effects before being marketed. Known and suspected endocrine disruptors are found in pesticides, plastic additives, cosmetics, and waterproofing finishes. The new report examines 4 sources of endocrine disrupting chemicals: plastics, pesticides, consumer products, and PFAS. Rising rates of cancer, infertility, and obesity are suspected to be at least partially attributable to the presence of endocrine disruptors in the human body. The Endocrine Society International Pollutants Elimination Network, which co-authored the new report, are calling for legally binding global treaties to restrict and ban endocrine disruption production and use. A new report makes the strong case that a class of industrial chemicals called endocrine disruptors are behind many diseases on the rise globally. The report calls for stronger global regulations controlling their use and release into the environment. A joint effort by the Endocrine Society and the International Pollutants Elimination Network, The report includes fresh research from the past decade documenting evidence that endocrine disrupting chemicals contribute to reproductive disorders, cancer, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, neurological conditions, reduced immune function, chronic inflammation, and other serious health concerns. If that wasn't enough. Research shows the chemicals to be especially dangerous to pregnant women and to children. Endocrine disruptors interfere with natural human hormones and disrupt the smooth functioning of the endocrine system, which governs everything from fetal development and fertility to skin appearance, metabolism, and immune function. Some endocrine-related disorders can lead to death. More than 24% of human diseases and disorders globally are attributable to environmental factors such as pollutants and hazardous chemical exposure, the report says, and those environmental factors play a role in 80% of the deadliest diseases, including cancer and heart disease. So, and then they already said this earlier, there are estimated 350,000, most have not been studied. So,
well, I mean that I wasn't ready for this because I didn't want to see your articles. I wanted to like give my own,
my bad.
Opinion of it without looking at what you had to offer. But this makes me think about all the processed foods that we are exposed to, which I try not to eat. By the way, I try to purchase things out of cans and boxes, but I still can't afford organic, which in America, is it really organic anyway? And there's so many things that are banned in other countries that are that you can sell here in America, like the dyes and all that kind of stuff. So that article made me think of those things, and I just wanted to, hey, Jack Hemmings, hello, he's back. I don't know if it's a he or she or they, but they're back. I just want to mention everybody, like, smash the like button. You know what I do, Michael? I usually, when I'm watching RBN, I'm like cooking or something, and I have it on my TV. So I don't smash the like button. I don't comment. I don't do any of those things. I just watch it on my TV as I'm, doing my thing because I love to cook. And I just got a KitchenAid. So I'm going to start baking and making my own bread. But anyway, but I caught 2 of CJ's lives and I pulled it up on my phone. I watched it on the TV, but I pulled it up on my phone so I could like actually play in the live chat. It is so fun. So yeah.
Yeah, nobody has time to do all the liking and sharing of everything all the time. I do it when I can.
Oh, that's the Jacqueline everybody was saying hello to. Okay, Jack Hemmings is a Jacqueline.
Thank you for
Thank you for telling me. I did not know.
Thanks
Cool
for coming
beans.
back too. Jacqueline was in at the beginning, but then she went to go watch Sabby and JB, and I guess she's back now. So welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know what it must be something. If Jacqueline, you want to tell us if something happened that for them to go live, all like something that occurred.
Breaking
or
news.
I'm not sure if they go live at this time. I don't think they did. I didn't think they did. So maybe something occurred. But whatever, I'm gonna go watch it after this anyway. So there's that. So should we wrap up, Michael?
Yeah, I just
like an
when
hour
you were
or 20
talking
minutes
about,
in.
I just briefly wanted to show this book. I haven't read it. Just thought maybe if people wanted to, I don't know. There it is. Yeah, The Age of Addiction: How Bad Habits Became Big Business. Because we were talking about the processed foods and everything, all the endocrine disruptors. So how are we supposed to individually solve this problem when the entire system is like designed around hijacking people's brains? It says, from a leading expert on addiction, a provocative, singularly authoritative history of how sophisticated global businesses have targeted the human brain's reward centers, driving us to addictions ranging from oxycodone to Big Macs to Assassin's Creed to Snapchat with alarming social consequences. So we all know this to be clearly true, right? We live in an age of addiction, from compulsive gambling and shopping to binge eating, opioid abuse, and sugar can be as habit-forming as cocaine, right? It's all stuff that we know, but we're pretty well stuck in like this cesspool. I don't see much of a way out of it without getting rid of capitalism, obviously, right? Like you got to call the spade, or we're done, right? So I like what she calls this limbic capitalism. I never heard that term before. So,
Mm.
but
So,
anyway, there was that, and then I had one other talking about the microbiome link, and then we could probably just wrap up. Because I've been kind of harping on this for a while, right? One of the things when I go into the hospital, they sort of treat me like a raving madman when I go on about the germ theory is dead. And they're like, oh, we can't abandon the germ theory, right? Because it's like you're misinformation spreader and we can't talk about this, whatever, without getting censored, right? So it's because the shots are 100% safe and effective, whatever. And then, so what's wrong with this narrative? Well, I was getting
allegedly.
focused on this thing called germ terrain duality theory. And this is where it's like terrain theory was this old theory that got kind of abandoned, tossed out, is considered to be pseudoscience now, where it's like the alternative explanation for the cause of disease originally, when germ theory was first thought up, was it's not the germs that make you sick, it's the integrity, the terrain of the body. When that is compromised, that's what makes you sick. And so it's not right to say it's just the terrain that makes you sick, but it's also, trigger warning, not correct to say that germs are the primary cause of the vast majority of disease, because when you are prepared to recognize how science is an evolving topic, then at some point we're going to have to, just like classical, whatever, with the evolution of quantum mechanics from classical mechanics, you're going to have to move to the next theory. So after germ theory, what comes next? Well, it's not just germ terrain theory, because that's what I was fixated on for a while, because that's still only a binary fallacy of an explanation. There's beyond that, there's more to it than that. So this is where you get into the social determinants of health. So it's the germs make you sick, whatever. The terrain not being healthy makes you sick, whatever. Having a bad socioeconomic status contributes to your health, okay? Having an unhealthy spiritual mindset is not good for your health. So when you have what is the main problem with nihilism is it's very unhealthy, whatever, for everyone. So when you're convinced and you're in an existential crisis that there is no meaning to life, surprise, surprise, that makes you kind of sick, okay?
Yeah.
So it's all
Yeah.
kind of a big interconnected holistic package, but then to say that, you got to ban that boy immediately, right?
Yeah. I think the takeaway, like I can't. My glasses are broken. I can't afford to. I've broken 2 pair of glasses. I can't afford to get another pair. I'm gonna try. Um, you know, like your mind is
But
not
whether or not you
broken. I guess.
can affects your health.
Yeah, the takeaways. Yeah, dental work can affect your overall health, and if you can't afford to go to the dentist, then it's going to affect your health. I think the big takeaways are your mind is not broken. Do things to relieve the stress. I would suggest journaling. If you don't like writing, then you could do audio. Everybody has a phone. You can do audio recordings, so that way you just keep in contact with yourself. Go back to your old audio recordings or your old journals and check back in with yourself. Well, how you were feeling then versus how you feel now, and what happened in between. Make sure, because your brain is another organ that needs to be taken care of, just like all the rest. Jack Hemming says, or Jacqueline, now that I know her name. Stress, lack of nutritious food, environmental factors, lack of access to health care or dental care. Exactly.
and
Just
community.
everything else. Yes.
Don't
Yes.
forget, if you're lonely, to say something to someone about it. It's okay, right?
Yes. Call someone and don't be scared. And check on your strong friends because
Yeah,
those
they're
are the
all.
ones that aren't going to say anything.
Yeah,
And they probably need your help the most because they don't say anything. Check on them, please. Um, and I did want to say about journaling and audio recording. So I have an announcement. Ding, ding, ding. So I am starting my own podcast because I love what Michael and I do together. We try to take one topic and and delve into it in detail as opposed to like segment after segment after segment. We pretty much, I think that's where we work best together, right, Michael? I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, I think we tried to do it the other way
yeah,
and it just didn't feel good to me. I feel like we need to take a topic and then we both just jump into it at all costs and just work on that topic for our conversations. So
yeah.
I started my own podcast for those times where I'm watching something and I'm like, what? I need to speak on this, or I want to talk about this. Uh, so so it's Abby Do Abby Don't on Twitter. So look for that to come soon. I'm still working on it, but yes, I am still a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. Of course, we're still going to be bringing. I'm gonna bring my Nick voice, bangers on bangers on bangers. I love when he says that. I did put it in the YouTube for this particular live stream. So, oh, Stay Balance is here. So, hi, Stay Balance. He's with Beyond the Arc on Saturdays at 8 p.m. With Charlie Brown and Mastermind. And actually, Steven, you've seen Steven on this show. He went on to that show. So, check them out on Sunday. Thank you, David Denuna. Denuna.
Denuno?
Denuna. I'm glad you love this conversation and keep this conversation going
Thank
with
you for the
your
feedback. Thanks
with
for
your
popping in,
friends
Stay
and
Balanced.
family. If you guys have anything you want us to discuss, these are our handles.
You want to close out with this? I've got a video from, got a Twitter video from a guy called Radical Jesus. We could, sometimes, right, anger is bad for you, right? But if we got to express it or you bottle it up. So maybe we'll go out with some healthy anger.
We can, but before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to Zoya is Love because she works so tirelessly to help us in the background. Nobody sees what she does for us, and I don't think we give shout outs to our sister channels and the Long Beach chapter, but we don't say enough about what she does for us. So Zoya is love, and we love her.
Thank you, Zoya. Appreciate your patience and understanding.
Yep.
And CJ too. Thank you for starting all of this. Right. One of the things I learned in the detox was I gotta be doing my appreciations of people, show my gratitude. So maybe every day I should say what I'm grateful for. So for today, I'm grateful for Zoya and CJ and my RBN community and independent media in general. Right.
Wonderful. So you're gonna
Yeah.
take us
That's
out with your video?
sure. Yeah.
I've been screaming for so long about the TikTok ban that I am out of screams. This is me actually angry. 352 members of the United States House of Representatives voted to ban TikTok today. That's 81%. I want you to think about the last time you heard 81% of our Congress agreeing on anything. Think about anything for the last 4 years. 81%. Shit, to pick the Speaker of the House, it took 18 votes, and he barely got through. Remember that? Remember how many times this year alone, we've had to have votes for the Speaker of the House, but TikTok ban. They're right there. They are voting to ban the complaint box rather than listen to a single complaint on this fucking app. They see us talking to each other. They see us seeing the humanity in each other's eyes. I don't care if you got a red hat or a fucking septum piercing. I hear your complaints and I see the world you're standing in. I'm not reading your tweet out of context. I'm listening to your voice. I've learned so much from this app over the last 2 years. And the biggest thing was to stop judging my fellow Americans like they are on some other fucking team. We are all just countrymen walking around together. We're all just people trying to get to the end of the day. We're all trying to make enough money so we can raise our kids, kiss them on the forehead, and hope that when we send them to school, they come home tomorrow. That's all we fucking want. And instead, has our Congress done anything to move forward on a Voting Rights Act? No. To make sure women can have health care? No. Maternity leave? No. The minimum wage has been stuck at the same fucking amount for 15 years. Have we moved forward on any of these things? No. But we can get 81% of the most corrupt motherfuckers to walk around directly from their country clubs to go to their government job with their government paycheck, with their fucking government car that I fucking paid for. And they can go onto the floor of the House of fucking Representatives that we all fucking pay for and tell us, no, we're doing it to protect your data. We're doing it because we're worried about the algorithm. Meanwhile, my data has been stolen 16 times in the last 5 years. You want to know how I know that? Because I've been in 16 class action lawsuits about my stolen fucking data that I didn't even know was stolen. One day I open the mail and there's a fucking mailer with a check for $5. Sorry, your fucking data got stolen. Your social security was found on the dark web because some chuckle fuck couldn't follow a goddamn regulation that was written in 1973. I am 39 years old. I have been told my entire fucking life that we need 60 votes in this goddamn Senate. And they're about to find it. We didn't have 60 votes to protect any other shit. We got kids going to school every fucking day, terrified they're not going to go home. We got kids not wanting to give up their phones, not because of TikTok, because they're worried if somebody comes into their school, they want to be able to call their fucking parents to say goodbye. Any movement? Do we have 352 congressmen worried about that shit? No. But oh no, a bunch of tech bros want to buy up all the TikTok data and use it to train AI models to put more people out of work. No, put me in Congress. Fucking put me in Congress then. Write my name the fuck in. I'll line up. I'll take all of their fucking money. I'll take all that goddamn lobbyist money. And you know what? I'll make sure it says paid brand deal in the bottom corner. Because when you're a fucking influencer, you have to disclose where the money comes from. But when you're a congressman, that's the price of freedom.
Bye.